Our study continues to be in Job. Like Brother Dan said, we've just got a couple more lessons, and then we circle back to Genesis again. Job is an interesting book. You look at what we learn from Job. The question might be asked, why did all of this occur? Was this a challenge of Satan where God had to prove himself? Was this something that God just decided to do? Things happen in our lives. We get the backstory of Job. God, in speaking to Satan, commends Job, not to Job, but to Satan, and says, "Have you seen a man upright and righteous like Job?" And from there we see the accusation of Satan that he only serves you because you bless him. And again, it's been mentioned several times, this really does touch directly on a lot of popular religion today, which is prosperity religion. That if you're good, if you please God, then God will make you prosperous. We know examples over and over in the scriptures where that's not necessarily the case, not in material terms. And that's the problem, is religion today wants to keep things in material terms and not in spiritual terms. God does prosper his people, but in ways that the world does not understand. God allowed Job to be tested of Satan, knowing how Job would hold up, how he would stand up. Job lost everything. You could not imagine going through what Job went through. To have a large family, being very prosperous, living at a level that everyone around you respected you for your uprightness and your integrity. They came to you for your counsel and for your judgment. And that was the position that Job was in, and every bit of it was taken away from him as a challenge from Satan. Sure, God allowed it. Why? And why is it recorded? Because there are so many lessons for us today. Even those who have accepted Jesus Christ as their Savior, that recognize the omnipotence and the omniscience of God, the knowledge of God. We are at times shaken by the things that occur in this world. COVID. Have you known somebody that's gone through a situation with COVID? One of my older brothers, we thought we lost him. He's gone through a lot of trials and troubles. Why did that come on him? Why do bad things happen to God's people? Why do bad things happen to good people? What's the answer to that? There are things that happen to everyone. If you lived in New Orleans when Katrina hit, if you were physically there, were you not impacted? Were you not impacted because you were righteous in God's eyes?
Your grace will the just and the unjust.
That's right, Ecclesiastes. God also has purposes in our lives. Sometimes it's to try and to test us. Sometimes it's to teach us lessons, to help us to grow. Sometimes it's for us to be an opportunity for a witness to other people. How do we come through these troubles and these trials? How will we come through COVID? come through as a witness and an example to other people? Will others see us, and will they turn and say, the mighty hand of God? Or will they hear from us questions of, I don't understand, I don't know. Now, Job had these events that occurred. He lost his children, he lost his wealth, he lost his health. He had friends that came together, and for a week they sat with him. They were so overcome with what he had gone through, they couldn't say a word for an entire week. Yet they sat, they mourned, and they sorrowed with him. How good comforters were they? I think they were close friends. I think they also had some wisdom. But as we saw through the chapters that we looked at of their consolation, it wasn't consolation at all. It had turned into accusation because they took the approach of modern religion today and said, if you prosper, it's because God blessed you, and if you don't prosper, then it's because God has identified sin in your life. We know that wasn't the case. But it was enough that even Job, in trying to deal with all the affliction that he was submitted to, and in responding to his comforters, that it shook Job too. To the point that Job was asking God, and in some ways was challenging God, let me come before you. We see a fourth come, Elihu, a young man. He actually provided some insight that the other three did not provide, some wisdom that the other three, but he was still off in his counsel. He didn't come as a comforter, but again came as an accuser. We looked at the scriptures. We as God's people, we as the Lord's church, we should be a comfort one to another. All of us from time to time go through challenges in our own lives. And we need the support of one another in those challenges. It's very important. We're commanded to do that. As we get to this morning's lesson, and this could go a lot of different directions, so we'll just see how it goes. Again, we've got several chapters to go through, 4 of them to be exact. It's not 29 chapters like a couple Sundays ago, but we're going to be presented with some important things for us as God's people to keep in our mind at all times, and to make sure that we are proclaiming to others the same. Again, we lose somebody in death. Sometimes we ask the question of, why did God take them? We see people that go through trials and tribulations and problems in their life. Why did God bring that on them? We may not always understand the reason for the things that occur in our life, but what do we need to do? And that's a question to you. What do we need to do as God's people when these things come upon us, or when these things come upon others?
Pray about it.
Pray about it.
Witness to it.
Witness. Be a comfort. Not question God. Seek to understand. But in seeking to understand that God may not give us the exact reason. We're going to see this morning, God responds to Job. After all that's going on, after everything that's been said of his friends, God responds to Job. But what is the one thing that God does not reveal to Job? The reason. He doesn't go back to Job and say, you know what? I was bragging about you, and Satan came and said, but he's not going to stand if. God didn't say any of that. He gave Job what was more important for him than understanding that. And it's more important for us than understanding always why certain things happen. Again, there are certain things that in our lives, as we make our decisions, we trigger events. We cause things to happen. I've used this animal a couple times, and Brother Roland modified it a little bit, but if you get in a car with somebody who's been drinking, and they go down the highway, did God place you there? If they veer off the road and they hit a tree, or they hit an embankment, did God cause that situation? No. It's the consequences of decisions that we made. That was what the accusers were challenging him with. But there are many other things that come about in our life, and they are for other reasons. Keep that in mind, and we may not always know. We need to evaluate and understand, is this the Lord speaking to me in some fashion? All right, all that said, the title lesson, a message from the Lord. The key verse is Job 38:3. Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. The application, the student will turn to God for understanding and accept his will when unpleasant things come his way. Anything before we get started? Give you an opportunity. Jump in. Like I said, I don't know exactly the path that this will follow, but we're going to, and we're not going to cover all 4 chapters. There's just no way. But I do want to talk through much of this. Beginning in chapter 38, verse 1, Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, Who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. So, we have the first 37 chapters that are setting the stage, giving us the understanding of what transpired and why it transpired, and then goes into the counsel, the comfort that was provided by men. Be careful when you're giving counsel and comfort. Understand that we are limited in our knowledge, and we as men don't always fully understand those things that are occurring. But then we get down to chapter 38. God has listened. He's heard. He's seen the hearts of men, including Job. He's not addressing this to the others that are there. He's addressing this to Job. Why? Because Job is God's man. Job has been impacted most directly with these things. It was Job that was really in need of some understanding of things and what God wanted to clarify. He answers to Job out of the whirlwind. Out of the whirlwind, some have indicated that the words there sort of indicate something more of a hurricane type event. Certainly strong winds, lightning, storms. It's not the first time that God had spoken out of, let me back up. It may be. Because this is the first recording. And this is prior to, I don't want to put Job after Moses. But we have the event of Moses going up on Mount Sinai. What do we have there? He came before God in the thunders and lightnings. A very dark, stormy setting is the indication. Came out of a whirlwind. Power, might. You might say majesty of God. Yeah, there's very few things that are as awe-striking as a thunderstorm with its lightning. Yeah, I've seen some situations where the lightning just crackled I mean, it was just going like crazy. And it's just, it's awesome to see it, but it also is very humbling to see it. Verse 2, God said, "Who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge?" Now, what does he mean? Who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? He's speaking to Job. It's to Job that he's asking this question. What does he mean, darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? So you have the light, you have the dark. Absence of light means what? Huh? Dark, stumble, can't see. Light does what? It manifests. It opens up. It allows viewing. Counsel, darkeneth counsel. What is God saying had happened here? Darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge.
Unsaved people?
Well, not necessarily. Job was a righteous man.
Yeah.
But he was guilty of the same thing that we oftentimes can be ourselves, of actually confusing because of our lack of knowledge. Trying to explain things that we don't have a true understanding of. We're not going to understand everything in this life. God's going to go through a whole set of questions. There's 77 questions in these verses. And each one challenges Job as to, what do you really know about it? What's your knowledge? Man thinks he's so smart today. Oh, we cracked the atom. We can clone things. Man thinks he is incredibly smart to the point that man has done everything he can to dismiss God and the existence of God. God is far beyond that. Who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? The things that had been said without knowledge had done nothing but confuse. Had they really gained anything in those 29 chapters of back and forth with Elihu, Bildad, and Zophar, and Eliphaz? Left one out. Verse 3, gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. What's God instructing him to do? What's it mean, gird up thy loins like a man? So they would take the belt.
Similar to pull yourself up by the bootstraps?
Sort of.
Right.
Prepare yourself. Prepare yourself. Prepare yourself for battle. Prepare yourself for the work at hand. Preparing the garments. Sometimes Cindy yells at me because I'll have some pretty nice clothes on and I'll start working them. I didn't mean to say yell. She chastises me. There are working clothes. And there are ways to be dressed depending on what you're doing. If you've got your hands on machinery, some of the things that they take off your ring, you'll lose a finger. Watch the loose clothing. Well, it was no different back then. Girding yourself up, girding the loins, was to prepare yourself for the work at hand or the battle at hand. For I will, this is emphatic, I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. Does God demand of us? Yeah, he does. We may push him aside. We may shirk him. We can only do it for so long. Eventually, his will occur with or without us. And if we are stubborn enough, he may take us home. It says, I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. Prepare to respond. You'll find in 42:3 that Job does respond, and that's not this week's lesson, but it's next week's. 42:3, it It says here, well, we'll start in 1. Then Job answered the Lord and said, I know that thou canst do everything, and that no thought can be withholden from thee. Who is he that hideth counsel without knowledge? That's directly referencing the question just asked. Therefore have I uttered that I understand not things too wonderful for me, which I knew not. How did Job get from where he is here to where he was in 42:3? Well, God imparts godly wisdom to Job. Verse 4, and this begins the questions of Job. And these are questions that Job has no clue to. And you and I really don't have a clue to. There are some things, we may understand some physical things better than Job did, just because of scientific gains over the years. But even at that, as you continue back further, there's really not one of them that we know everything about. And yet God does. Right down to the smallest detail. Verse 4, where wast thou when I laid the foundation of the earth? Declare, if thou hast understanding. You'll find each of these begins with a, where wast thou? Or, where are thee? Or, who shut up? Hast thou? Again, hast thou? Hast thou perceived? Where is the way? All of these are being addressed directly to Job, and they're challenges to him. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? What's he referring to? When were the foundations of the earth laid? Creation. Creation. Yeah, and it's really talking about the architecture here, the design, laying out. When I laid the foundations of the earth, declare if thou understanding, who hath laid the measures thereof? Now, those are in very specific terms. Understanding the height, the breadth, the science behind it. Again, we think that science knows a lot. There is so much that's unknown about not only this earth, but the universe itself. And God's going to go into the universe and the details. Who hath laid the measures thereof? Well, man would say that it just happened. It just happened. The complexity of what we see in God's creation far exceeds anything that man has ever created. The likelihood of the earth coming about through evolution is far, far less probable than for a car to go driving down the street, not built by a man, but coming together all by itself. That car is far more simplistic than this creation that God built. And that's what man is claiming in his push of evolution. It doesn't even follow science. But I don't want to get off track. Anyway, who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Again, very specific, down to the measurements. What size did the earth have to be? What mass? What weight? What rotation? What path? Yeah. Did it have to follow? There are so many things. What axis did it have to be on for man to be able to survive on earth? All of those were laid out by God. He designed it such. Verse 6, whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened, or who laid the cornerstone thereof? He's not only the architect, but he is the master builder. John chapter 1 tells us that Jesus, Son of God, is actually the one that did the physical creation. He's the master builder. Verse 7, when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. So this is tied to these verses. Who has laid the measures? Whereupon are the foundations? When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. Who is being referenced here? The The morning star sang, sons of God shouted for joy. Who was there at the time? Man wasn't. The angels. Yeah. The angels sang, shouted for joy at the magnificence of what God had created. Where was Job? Job had not been conceived. It would be many, many, many years later. Man had not been created when the foundations were laid. Man can't conceive. When the morning stars sang together, all the sons of God shouted for joy in the creation. We then move to verses 8 through 11, where he brings up the sea. Or who shut up the sea with doors when it brake forth, as if it had issued out of the womb? When I made the cloud the garment thereof, and thick darkness a swaddling band for it, and break up for it my decreed place, and set bars and doors, and said, hitherto shalt thou come, but no further, and here shall thy proud waves be stayed. Who set the places for? The seas, the oceans. God did. And again, man is so concerned about global warming, the ozone layers, the imbalance of the earth, that it's fragile and it's going to fall apart because of man. It's not going to fall apart because it'll fall because of the sins of man, but not because of man's power over the earth. The earth will be destroyed, but it'll be melted by God, the Creator. Verses 12 through 15 talks about the dawn. Hast thou commanded the morning since thy days, and caused the day spring to know his place, that it might take hold of the ends of the earth, that the wicked might be shaken out of it? It is turned as the clay to the seal, and they stand as a garment. From the wicked their light is withholden, and the high arm shall be broken. The dawn, who causes the sun to rise? Again, God set it in place. Saw this morning, I don't ever put anything on Facebook, but I will check Facebook from time to time just to get updates from family. It's odd. I didn't get on Facebook for a long time, but my family was on there, and Cindy would keep me updated, and then I got on and they got off. So I don't know if there's some cause and effect there, but occasionally they'll put some on there. Carol had on this morning a beautiful picture in the Tennessee mountains of the sunrise this morning, and commented, what a beautiful day the Lord has made. That one wasn't quite that beautiful here, but we've certainly had our share of beautiful days, beautiful mornings. There, from the hands of God, not man. Man has had no part in it. We go on in verse 16. Hast thou entered into the spring of the sea, or hast thou walked in the search of the depth? How high is the highest mountain? What mountain? Everest? And it is 29,000 feet? Yes.
And 29.
And
It's 29,029.
there you go. I would have left off the 29 feet. I would have been more concerned with the 20,000. The deepest sea. Where's the deepest place in the sea? The man's aware of. Mariana's Trench. How deep is it? 36,000 feet. Man, in 1960, finally set the bottom of Mariana's Trench. 36,000 feet, plus some feet. If you set Mount Everest in Mariana's Trench, how far would it stick up out of the water? It wouldn't. It would still be submerged, 7,000 feet. Hast thou entered in the springs of the sea, or hast thou walked in the search of the depth? Have the gates of death been opened unto thee, or hast thou seen the doors of the shadow of death? When referencing these, oftentimes they're referenced as being beneath or toward the center of the earth. We just got a glimpse of Mariana's Trench, 36,000 feet. You haven't even begun to plunge beneath that. Now, we have our ideas and thoughts of what all is down there. I was looking at volcanic activity. When we flew to Alaska and came back, we went over Mount St. Helens, that blew. And it got me curious, and I was reading. There is so much that they don't know about volcanic activity above the surface. Now, don't get me wrong, we've all been through science class, and we've seen, the stratus, the layers of the rock, and we sort of see the shifting of, do we understand it? Don't even think that man understands it. One of the articles I was reading was trying to understand why these mountains over here that were not there at the fault had blown. They couldn't understand it. Shouldn't have happened in the mind of man. We think we're smart. We want to challenge God in what he knows and understands and what his judgments are. And we aren't in a position to do it. Hast thou perceived the breadth of the earth? Declare it, if thou knowest it all. Where is the way where light dwelleth? Where does it come from? Now, again, we know some things about it, but there is so much of the universe that we have no knowledge at all. Pluto, they finally decided was not a planet, right? Well, all this time, we thought it was either a planet or a dog. Man is foolish, right? Skip down, verse 22. Hast thou entered in the treasures of the snow? Hast thou seen the treasures of the hail? Which I have reserved against the time of trouble, against the day of battle and war? By what way is the light parted which scattereth the east wind upon the earth? Who hath divided a watercourse for the overflowing of waters, or a way for the lighting of the thunder, to cause it to rain on the earth where no man is, on the wilderness wherein there is no man? God set this up. And you think about it, he planted Adam and Eve in a garden, eastward in Eden. The garden was eastward in Eden, Eden the earth. But he established the earth complete. Where man was, and where no man was. Let's skip on. He talks about the weather, and then in verse 31, he talks about the constellations. Canst thou bind the sweet influence of Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? In other words, can you hold together the constellation, the stars that create Pleiades? Can you move the stars that are part of the bands, the belt of Orion? The answer, obvious for Job, would be the same as you and I. Absolutely not. Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season? Or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons? Cause the patterns. Knowest thou the ordinances of heaven? Canst thou set the dominion thereof in the earth? How many stars are out there? Man can only guess. He goes on to talk about understanding, and I'm trying to read my notes here. Understanding and along with some commands. Canst thou, verse 34, canst thou lift up thy voice to the clouds, that abundance of waters may cover thee? Canst thou send lightnings that they may go and say unto thee, here we are? The storms, the clouds, conjuring rain. Man has tried to do that for years and years and years. Some people claim to be able to. I've never known of anyone. I've heard of seeding the clouds, but at best, I don't know that there's been any effect in that. Sending lightnings, not unless you stand there and hold a metal rod up in the air, can you potentially affect lightning. I wouldn't recommend it. Who hath put wisdom in the inward parts, or who hath given understanding to the heart? Who can number the clouds in wisdom, or who can stay the bottles of heaven? Now, 38 is interesting. When the dust groweth into hardness, and the clods cleave fast together. That's part of the discussion here of the rain, the hail, and the clouds. The dust groweth into hardness, and the clods cleave fast together. What's it referring to? What's science indicated to us about rain? Well, the molecules cleave to little dust particles. Did Job know that back then? No, but God did. Science didn't know that, but God did, and He gave it to us. Verse 39, wilt thou hunt the prey for the lion, or fill the appetite of young lions, when they couch in their dens and abide in the covert, lie awake? Who provideth for the raven his food? When his young ones crieth unto God, they wonder for lack of meat. Sermon on the Mount talks about that. Who provides? Who provides for the fowl of the air? God does. God does. He gives us our provision. Matthew 6 and 26. Chapter 39. So he's talked about his creation, the earth. Then he talks about, and he really starts at the end of chapter 38, understanding that man created these chapters. But in 39:1, knowest thou the time when the wild goats of the rock bring forth? Or canst thou mark when the hinds do calve? Canst thou number the months that they fulfill? Or knowest what thou the time when they bring forth? What's he talking about? Giving birth. Now, people, from conception to birth is how long?
42 weeks.
42 weeks, 9 months. You state it in different, I think of birth as being in 9 months. Is that true? Well, for humans. Is that true of the animal kingdom? No. No, not at all. I started to go into disgusting place, I won't. All right. Wild goats. How would Job know the breeding of the wild goats? The calving of the wild goats? He wouldn't necessarily. Not unless he spent time with them, and I don't think he did. Canst thou number the months that they fulfill? They bow themselves. They bring forth their young ones. They cast out their sorrows. Their young ones are in good liking. They grow up with corn. They go forth and return not unto them. They go out on their own. He goes on and talks about the wild ass or the wild donkey. Who hath loosed the hands of the wild donkey? Whose house I have made the wilderness, and the barren land his dwellings. Who provides for them? God does. It's the same answer as before. He scorneth the multitude of the city. He stays out in the wilderness, in the forest, in the places of... Now, deer don't do that, do they? Deer are, man, they're in the city. They're in the city heavy. But the wild donkey has his place, out away from the city. The range of the mountains is his pasture. He searcheth every green thing. Will the unicorn be willing to serve thee? Now, what's the unicorn? It's not that mythical creature that we think of, but here the term is probably referring to an ox. A wild ox.
A wild ox?
A wild ox. Now, here, this is describing an animal that has some fierceness to it. great strength. Will the unicorn be willing to serve thee, or abide by thy crib? Canst thou bind the unicorn with his bands and the furrows, or will he harrow the valleys after thee? What's it talking about here in verse 10? Verses 9 and 10, actually. It's talking about domesticating him like a cow. To pull, to farm with. Wilt thou believe him, that he will bring home thy seed and gather it into thy barn? No, can't be trusted. Yeah, I was reading that wild ox in Africa is actually one of the most prolific killers of men. They're more ferocious than lions and tigers and bears. Sorry, I had to throw that in there. They're big, they're powerful, they're strong, and what he's saying is man can't control them. You can't domesticate it. You can't trust him to pull the plow. Verse 13 talks about the peacocks and the ostrich. Gavest thou goodly wings unto the peacocks, or wings and feathers unto the ostrich? Verse 14, which leaveth her eggs in the earth, and warmeth them in the dust, and forgetteth that the foot may crush them, or that the wild beast may break them. What's the reference here to these? What do you know about an ostrich? There's a couple things, probably. They're the biggest bird, right? They don't fly. What else? They can run fast. They can outrun a horse. In fact, God references that in what he says. They're also very dumb. Forgetteth that his foot, verse 15, which leaveth the eggs in the earth, and warmeth them in the dust, and forgetteth that the foot may crush them, or that the wild beast may break them. Hardened against her young ones, as though they were not hers. Her labor is in vain without fear. Because God hath deprived her of wisdom, neither hath he imparted to her understanding. What time she lifteth up herself on high, she scorneth the horse and his rider. Ostrich is faster than the horse. Scorneth the horse and his rider. Goes on and talks about the horse in verses 19 through 25. And again, we could go through these, but I really want to get a little further down the road. Verse 26 through 30. Doth the hawk fly by thy wisdom, and stretch her wings toward the south? Doth the eagle mount up at thy command, and make her nest on high? She dwelleth and abideth on the rock, upon the crag of the rock, in the strong place. From thence she seeketh the prey, and her eyes behold afar off. Her young ones will suck up blood, and where the slain are, there she is. Now, these are questions that God has posed to Job after everything that's gone on. After Job has questioned, where is my judgment? Where's the fairness? Why am I dealing with these things in my life? What if God asked us these questions? How would we respond to these questions? Well, we only have one response. I don't know. I cannot. Our utter futility in these things. We begin chapter 40. Any comments? Any questions? It should be humbling to us. The intent is to get us to stop and to pause and to think of man before an almighty and an all-knowing God. And too oftentimes we don't pause to do that. We may get up in the morning and we may look at a beautiful sunrise and thank God for it. But in the process, do we really stop and pause and say, God, it is all about you and it's not about me. Your command is my desire. And that's really where we're going to in all this. Because you know all things. Those things that you choose for me are better for me than the things that I may choose for myself. And therefore, I give give myself to you. Those are the things we should be saying. But what about the troubling times? What things do we ponder in our minds during those? What paths do we go down? Certainly, many times, we'll turn and we'll look to God for help. But oftentimes it's more or less in a selfish, help get me out of this mess. Help me out of the problems that I've created. Fix this for me, God. There should be a recognition by me of where I am and where God is. Chapter 40, verse 1. Moreover, the Lord answered Job and said, shall he, could be Job, but you could put your own name in there, shall he that contendeth with the Almighty instruct him? Go back and look at these questions that God has asked Job, and we'll find that these are regarding the material things, the things that Job is in and around, can observe and see. But the knowledge of God, that is only a fraction of it. To understand the inner workings of men, the spiritual aspects, the emotional aspects. Shall he that contendeth with the Almighty instruct him? He that reproveth God, let him answer it. Here, God is telling Job that he's been contending with him, quarreling with God. He goes on and says, are you going to instruct me? He that reproveth, rebuke or correct. Do we really presume to correct God? Many men do. They presume to correct God. God, when he created man, he didn't know what he was doing. Should have been a woman. Correcting God. Did God know what he was doing? Yes, he did. But we have become wiser. Romans chapter 1 talks about the wisdom of man and the path that it leads down. Verse 3, then Job answered the Lord and said, behold, I am vile. What individual is there that should not say the same? I am vile. What shall I answer thee? I will lay mine hand upon my mouth. Once have I spoken, but I will not answer. Yea, twice, but I will proceed no further. What is the response of Job here? What was Job asking for prior to this? An opportunity to go before God, to plead his case, to get the unfairness taken away. What's he saying now? I'm vile. Shall I answer thee? I will lay mine hand upon my mouth. Isaiah had a vision. Did he not say something very similar to that? Coal was brought, touched the lips, to purify. I will lay my hand upon my mouth. Once have I spoken, but I will not answer, yea, twice, but I will proceed no further. Verse 6, then answered the Lord unto Job out of the whirlwind and said, gird up thy loins now like a man. I will demand of thee, and declare thou unto me. Does that sound familiar? What did 38 begin with? It's the same challenge. God's not done with him yet. He commands him to prepare to answer. Verse 8, wilt thou also disannul my judgment? Who is set in a place to judge? Well, we have judges, we have courts, and we've put them in a place to judge man. What's the limitation?
It's the laws of man.
It's the laws of man. So the laws can be flawed. What else?
They can be flawed.
They can be flawed. You know, Israel dealt with corrupt judges. They would alter their responses based on the individual. They were respecters of people and not of the things of God. Verse 8, wilt thou also disannul my judgment? Wilt thou condemn me that thou mayest be righteous? What was Job doing? He was trying to prove his righteousness. Now, I think Job got caught up to a certain extent in the arguments, but it's not unlike man. You know, when I get in an argument, I'm right. Ask Cindy, I'm right. And I want to justify myself. But I'm not before an almighty God. Wilt thou condemn me that thou mayest be righteous? Verse 9, hast thou an arm like God, or a strong arm? Right arm of God, powerful? That thou, or canst thou thunder with a voice like him? We saw God speaking in the wind, the whirlwind. We also have other examples in the scripture. We looked at some in Revelation where he spoke as thunder. Verse 10, deck thyself now with majesty and excellency, and array thyself with glory and beauty. We've seen depictions of the revealed God in the Son of God, Jesus Christ, and we see in him light as a flame of fire, clothing pure white, the majesty, the excellency of God. Array thyself with glory and beauty. Shekinah means what? When we say Shekinah glory, what are we saying? Well, Shekinah is glory. Yeah.
It's a visible glory.
Yeah. It is the glory of God and the beauty of God. Verse 11, cast abroad the rage of thy wrath, and behold everyone that is proud and abase him. What's he talking about here? The rage of thy wrath, behold everyone that is proud and abase him. What will happen to the prideful? They shall fall. By whose hand? Not by mine, not by Job's. God is the one that judges men, the proud and the humble. Job can't do that. Tread down the wicked in their place, the last part of verse 12. Can Job do that? You know, man has laws, man has police, and yet even with all of that, do we still have crime? Have we put an end to it? Have we stopped the wickedness of men? No. And man can't. God can. Verse 13, hide them in the dust together and bind their faces in secret. Then will I also confess unto thee that thine own right hand can save thee. When Job is able to do these things, then God will pronounce him as being able to save himself. Behold now the behemoth. Now, two animals here to finish out 40, and we're about done here. And chapter 41, the behemoth and the leviathan. What creatures are these? Anybody who's looked at these, what are they?
This is probably hippopotamus.
Could be a hippopotamus, could be a crocodile. Other speculation. I know that science has proven to everyone that the dinosaurs died millions and millions of years ago. Well, not according to God. And there's some that speculate that dinosaurs may have very well existed at this time. How accurate is carbon dating? Again, I don't want to give way off the subject. We don't know. It's not been proven. It says carbon has a half-life, blah, blah. Science is observed. Who's observed carbon dating? You got to be pretty old.
It's been proven that it's flawed.
Thank you. All right. So, without getting into what these animals are, they may have been a hippopotamus, they may have been an alligator, crocodile, they may have been something else. But they are two examples of creatures that man could not contain, that man feared above all others. And yet, what's God's point in these? He created them, and He controls and contains them. Sort of like one comedian said, I made you, I can take you out, and I can make another one like you. Well, certainly God can do that. God is all powerful in all things. We'll stop. Any comments or questions or thoughts?
I think this whole conversation, or everything that kind of takes place with Job in relation to God, there's so many that say, well, I'm going to tell God a thing or two, and we see Job says that, and then standing before God says, never mind.
That's exactly right. Once in the face of God. How many people have said, you know, when I get to heaven, I'm going to tell God this, I'm going to tell